So I'm going to turn this meeting over to Julie, who's going to talk about telling our Rotary story.
What an easy story it is to tell after that video, right? Amazing. Thank you all for being here. Now, we made a commitment this year, I did as the membership chair, to do membership development sessions with our club members. Our education and learning process is not just about our new members, but it's about all of us learning new things. And one of the important ways that we are Rotarians is by sharing our Rotary story. All of you have done this in many ways on the meetings, or most of you. Some of you are not talkers in the meetings, and I hope to change that today. But there are a lot of different reasons why we do it. There are a lot of different ways to do it. And so some of this will be repetitive. I understand that, especially if you're already a great public speaker. But this is really just about getting us all on the same page and inspiring us to go out and tell our Rotary story. So let me share some slides with you. So first of all, we have the how, right? How are we going to tell our story? And there are lots of different ways that we do that, different examples. Of course, one is by verbally or orally talking to someone who happens to engage you in a conversation about Rotary. What are some other ways that we do that? And you can unmute and share if you'd like. Give just one example, if you would.
We can invite people to meetings.
Yep. I know we have a lot of talkers. Come on now.
You can tell people that there are 35,000 Rotary clubs in the world. That usually gets their attention.
Yes, so this is the how, not the what. So how are we telling our story? Let's save that one for later, Ken. I like it.
We have such an amazing social.
Sorry.
We have such an amazing social media presence, and I think one of the ways that we very effective is through social media, sharing our Facebook and Instagram posts about all the cool stuff we do.
Yep. Julia?
We can wear our Rotary shirts when we're out doing things. Our Rotarians at work, our End Polio Now, our Rotary People of Action.
Love it. Barbara?
We can wear a Rotary pin. Often it's a way to identify another Rotarian, like at the airport.
That's a good one. Remember that later, because I have a little engagement exercise for the end. So Alberto, you had your hand up?
Well, just to follow up on wearing the Rotary pin, a lot of people's that you're talking to or start talking to ask you, what's Rotary?
Right.
And that's where you start. That's
a great place to start. Okay. There are lots of different ways that we do that. Most of it's by talking, right? And I totally agree with Candace about our online presence and our ability to tell a story through social media. Of course, we do that in writing and visually through these amazing videos that we download from RI, and then we slap our logo on the end, right? And printed materials. And you've, of course, mentioned terrific ways which tell a story before you even get close to someone, right? If you're wearing a giant gold logo on your t-shirt. There are lots of ways to do this. We're not going to talk a lot about Rotary branding in this session. We know how important that is, but I am going to cover one piece of that. Branding is more than just the logo. I think everyone knows that, or if you don't, I'm telling you, it's more than a logo. It's also, in this aspect, it's how we talk about Rotary. It is about the Rotary voice. Rotary International has gone to a lot of trouble to develop 4 aspects of our Rotary voice and what they mean to us. So let's take a look at those. Our Rotary voice should always include us being persevering, inspiring, compassionate, and smart. That won't be any trouble for any of you, right? So if we think about these aspects, let's consider their meaning just a little bit. In persevering, we want to be bold, have clarity in our conversation, and conviction in our passion about Rotary. We're insightful. We are discerning. That's really what the smart aspect comes down to, or persevering, I'm sorry. With persevering, we find lasting solutions to problems. It's how Rotary is persevering after decades of being dedicated to eradicating polio. Inspiring. That video of how people are just will not stop until they find all of those zero dose children. That's what we take into every project that we do, from delivering goods to people who need it in competition with Indian Land, to making Happy Bucks donations in November because people in Greenwood need those supplies. We should carry that inspiration along with us in all that we do, whether it's putting out a social media post, participating in a service project, or simply showing up every week, right? Compassionate. We care about those we serve. This is not something I have to educate any of you about at all. We tackle community challenges because we have empathy for others and we understand that others need help in our communities. We don't always understand from a personal aspect of what the problems are, but we know when we are told that they need help and when they ask us to help, we know that we can be compassionate in our response. And finally, smart. We're perceptive. We need to be perceptive, especially in telling our story. Use our expertise when we're out in the community. Ken gave us a great example of how Toastmasters and Rotary entwine to create this great partnership. So bring all of that expertise together to go out and be a Rotarian and tell the Rotary story. So we've talked a little bit about the how. Of course, you know what else is coming, right? And here's the why. Why do we tell the Rotary story? And why do we tell our Rotary story? Those may be the same, they may be different. If you would take just 5 or 10 seconds, if you'd like to share one idea of why do you tell the Rotary story or our story? Diana, what do you think? Do you want me to call on you? You can just decline if you don't want to answer.
Well, that's very gracious of you. I think we want to tell our story so that others will be equally challenged to become involved with what we do in Rotary. Without having perhaps a personal story to tell, we can always rely on the resources of the foundation. But I think personal stories are the key.
That's exactly right. One of the things that I took away from all of my research into before doing this session was speak from the heart. If you want to show your compassion and be inspiring, feel what we do, feel that empathy and care about being a Rotarian. Thank you, Diane. Trying to see who hasn't. Julie, Barbara,
Let me see if I'm muted.
you are. I can hear you. You're
Okay.
not. Mhm.
I think telling our story about Rotary experiences, many are things that would happen with and to you and others that we would never experience if it weren't through Rotary. Rotary opens so many doors into different directions. And may I cite a quick example?
Yes. Mhm.
when I was much younger, I was more active in doing things with Rotary. And one of the things was helping a assistant district governor with foreign students. And there was a young lady from Russia who got stranded at the Atlanta airport one evening. And he called me and said, can you go pick her up and keep her overnight and take her back to the airport tomorrow? I would never have had that opportunity if it hadn't been for Rotary.
I love that. Anyone else want to share who hasn't already shared? Why do we tell our Rotary story or the Rotary story in general? Dan, if your special guest would like to share, can everyone see Dan's special guest? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. In the why, we also, in addition to why do we tell the story, it's also about what are we trying to accomplish? And it's not always a sales pitch, right? Sometimes it's just sharing our passion with someone. And we have to keep in mind, as we consider why we're telling the story, what do you think the receiver or the audience wants in this conversation? It's not just about us in that story. It's about why we're telling it and who's listening to that story and what kind of impact we can make, okay? So as we consider the what, which I know all of you have a what in your Rotary story, consider all of these things, the receiver and the audience. If someone engages you in this conversation, or if you decide to share your Rotary story because someone has asked you a question, who is it? Why do you think they're asking? And how do you view them in relation to Rotary? Consider the purpose. Why are you in this conversation? What's happening around you? Read the room a little bit, people. How did Rotary come up? Did you bring it up? Did someone else bring it up? Were you wearing that shirt or your pin? And remember, it isn't just about talking. It's about the story. It's about the impression that you want to leave. In considering intention, this is what I mean. Do you think this person is interested in Rotary because you are? Because they're one of your loved ones or they're a friend? Do you think they're interested because they're a potential member? Because they are asking only to answer their question themselves? Sometimes that happens. And we don't actually know if maybe they have had a good or a bad experience with Rotary in the past. So when we think about intention, that should factor in. If not immediately, then at some point, if you're allowed to have a longer conversation with someone. Consider the time, and this is part of reading the room as well. Do we have time for a 5-minute speech? We all have the 3-minute elevator speech about Rotary. Or is it best to give your encapsulated response? And I'm going to encourage you to develop different levels of responses, just in case you're in a situation where you might read the room and know, I don't have much time to make an impact. I want to give the right kind of response. The other thing I want you to consider is, especially because sometimes we're out with other Rotarians, and I saw this when we were at Emery River Winery. Are you the only Rotarian in the conversation? And how can you share the time with other Rotarians to broaden the impact? It doesn't just have to be your story, your time, your words. And be careful not to try and tell someone else's story. Speak from your heart and make it your own. But just sort of read the room a little bit. And the last thing to consider is the potential impact. Are you sharing your passion, simply that? Or is this person a potential member? Is there a reason why you're having this conversation, you think? And finally, with impact, you have to assess whether or not there is a call to action. When we're making impact on other people through our Rotary story, and maybe they're a potential member, a potential donor, a district governor who doesn't know about the E-Club yet, what is the call to action and how can we get there? And that's why it helps us to frame our Rotary story in advance so that when we have these opportunities to give our 5-minute speech or our capsulated response, we are so ready to do that. The big point about the what, of course, are these questions. Barbara said it so perfectly earlier. At the airport, you're wearing a shirt, you're wearing a pin, and someone says, "What is Rotary?" Surveys will tell us we only have a few seconds to capture someone's attention and make an impression. So as you move forward, and we're not going to do this part today because I have some fun engagement stuff for us after these slides. But this is a piece of homework. If you only have a few seconds to answer the question, what is Rotary? Think of a situation that you could be in, and that's the question you want to answer. And you have 10 seconds to do it. Be ready. That's part of your homework. You never know when I might ask it. The second and maybe the bigger question is, why Rotary? If one of the reasons that we're telling our story is to grow Rotary, to get to 50 and beyond, we have to be ready to answer why Rotary. Even us longtime people, 20 plus years Rotarian here, sometimes struggles with this response. Because I'm thinking, what do I want to share? What do I want to say? Blah, blah, blah. So I just need to practice. I need to develop what this is in a 30-second block and be ready to go when someone says, why did you join Rotary? Why is Rotary important? What difference does Rotary make in the world? This is especially important when we're talking with prospective members. We sometimes inundate people with lists of what we do and proud accounts and full details of all of our projects and too much information, instead of helping them figure out why they might want to check out Rotary, why they might want to come to one of our meetings, why they might want to consider becoming a Rotarian. As we think about why Rotary, I want you to consider things like my Rotary moment. Not just why I joined or why I stay, because those are different responses. But what was the moment that sealed the deal for you? Barbara's little example earlier was really important. Never would have had that experience if not for Rotary. I'm going to take liberty and share one of my Rotary moments that I absolutely love and I think about a lot. I went to the International Convention in Indianapolis many, many years ago. And the hotel that we were staying at and the conference center it was big and expansive. And so there were tunnels in between these different locations. It also poured down rain one day. And so at one point we were in the tunnel or the walkway, but there was a piece that separated that was outdoors in order to get to the larger room. And there we all are, literally 50 or 60 people in this hallway. Excited about Rotary. We're at an international convention. We're ready to go. I was alone and I did not hear one other bit of English around me. It was amazing. We were all there for the same reason, to do good in the world. And nobody was like me, and I loved it. So that's one of my Rotary moments that I think is really special. I want you to think about these things and what I've talked about. And I have some wonderfully engaging exercises for you, some challenges if you're ready to take the chance. Consider your Rotary moment, consider why you joined, why you stay, and all of those other things that I mentioned. And get ready. If you want to take the challenge, just raise your hand and I'll call on you because we don't have unlimited time, of course. Here is the first challenge. You have 30 seconds. A family member asks you about Rotary over the Thanksgiving table. What is Rotary all about? Who wants to take it? I'll just be glad no one's talking about politics at my in-laws' Thanksgiving table if they ask me about Rotary, so.
Lene answered it in the chat.
Oh, I can't see that, sorry.
That's okay. I'll very, very quickly share it. I don't have a timer for 30 seconds, but I bet Julie does. That actually happened this weekend, but it turned into a 20-minute conversation. But I never expected 20 minutes. So the question started, why is Uncle Lance in Pittsburgh? And so these are two young folks. They have been sort of targets of mine and Lance's for a while. And so I said, well, he's doing what he loves to do. Both of us enjoy service, and Rotary provides a structured way in which we can do that. And so, and I said, and it's kind of cool that we're here in a taxi cab on the streets of Chicago. This is where Rotary started. And I told a quick snippet, and they were all full of questions. So I think having a 30 seconds is important, but I think it's important to present those 30 seconds in a way that allows for questions to follow up.
That is great. Think about that in one of our future questions too, but. Who else wants to tackle this one specifically? You have 30 seconds, Thanksgiving table. So what's Rotary all about?
It's all about, this is Deidre. I think simply it's all about leaving the world in a little better place than you found it.
Mm-hmm.
The mic drop on the Thanksgiving table, people. Amazing. Leaving the world a better place than you found it. And we do that in so many ways. I love that so much. Okay, next chance for you. Ready? You have 20 seconds. We're becoming more and more encapsulated. You have 20 seconds. You're wearing a Rotary shirt in the grocery store and someone asks you, what is Rotary?
Alberto has his hand up.
Alberto.
If anyone asks me what is Rotary, I simply answer that Rotary is the world's largest service organization. First, that with 34,000 approximately and 1.3 million clubs and 1.3 million members, they can do good in their own community and around the world.
Love it. I love it that you have facts on the tip of your tongue. When we're using facts and metrics about Rotary, this is a great way to pull it in. When we know someone we're sitting across from, if you're in with your financial person or in the bank and someone asks you, that's when you use numbers, right? Have those numbers, at least one fact, right? That's really good. Anyone else? 20 seconds in the grocery store? Ken?
I can just simply tell you, I've tried a lot of things with people, and here are the three things that I have discovered raises their eyebrows and gets their attention. So the first one, when they ask what Rotary is, I tell them, you'd be surprised to know that there's almost 35,000 Rotary clubs in the world. And then I tell them, Rotary has been working on eradicating polio for more than 30 years, and we're down to less than 100 cases in the world. And the third thing, if I have time to tell them, is you would be surprised to know that the United Nations was started by a group of Rotarians.
You're muted, Julie.
Thank you. Well, this is what happens in multiple screens. I forget and I have to cough and then, yeah. I love the facts, Ken. I'm going to add in one thing because sometimes a visual helps, even when we're orally telling the story. When we talk about eradicating polio, and you said it so well, to use that that visual and that phrase that RI uses a lot. We are this close to eradicating a disease from the face of this planet, which has never been done except for smallpox. Love that fact to share. Okay, next challenge, because we have limited time. Here's your chance. 10 seconds, 10 seconds only. You're on an airplane about to deplane. Someone notices the rotary pin you're wearing. You have 10 seconds to share something and get them to keep listening as you walk into the airport. Who's ready for this one? 10.
I'll go.
Who's that?
So, Rotary is an organization that lets you do good stuff both in your own community and around the world. And I can walk into virtually any, since we're traveling together, I'll tell you, I can walk into virtually any town or city in the world and feel like I may walk in, not know a soul, but I walk out with 10 new friends.
Love it. Who else wants these 10 seconds? Who hasn't spoken yet? Dan, Julie Bright, Matt? Anyone? Julie, I'm going to make fun of you for a second. Have you ever said something in 10 seconds?
Hey, that
Challenge
could
to
be
you.
10. My 10 seconds is that Rotary is the most amazing service organization with clubs all over the world.
Love it. Simple, effective, and you're also reading the room. You have just a small amount of time to make an impact and make a difference. There are so many chances, so many ways, and so many reasons to share the Rotary story. What I encourage you to do is think ahead to just 3 situations. Get yourself that 10-second response, that 30-second response, and maybe that 5-minute speech if you're ever given that chance to do it. But tell your Rotary story and speak from your heart. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Julie. I'm so excited to hear different people's versions of their 30, 20, and 10 second. And that is one of the things that is fun because you hear different tidbits from everyone. And I love the way Ken started his with, you would be amazed to know, or you would be impressed to know. It's a great hook because they're like, what am I going to be so impressed about? So I might have to add that. I'm impressed when I learn facts every day, like Matt put in the chat about the United Nations thing. I learned facts about polio from the speakers on the Zone Summit that I was like, ooh, I'm putting that in my toolbox. So Julie, thank you for helping us grow a little bit of our Rotary story.